obviously Varroa mite treatment, and I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can get this going here. Everybody I think in here is pretty much beekeepers already, right?
No.
No? You're not a beekeeper?
I'm considering it.
Great.
Spring.
Welcome. So, anyway, this is pretty much our number one enemy right here, the Varroa destructor. Actually, was discovered in 1904 in Asia. It jumped from Apis mono to Apis mellifera, what I understand, in the Philippines, and then finally moved to Europe, and then finally to the United States. I think it's first discovered, if I recall correctly, in Minnesota. And probably it's not longer than that. But the way Varroa mites, you all know this already, I'm just going to, the female adult mite is already being impregnated, and they're fertile. So she'll enter into the cell about 5 to 5.5 days of a larva, the egg stage. Come on in. Mite treatment. As you all know, the honeybee is in the egg phase for 3 days, and then it melts into a larva. But on day 5 to 5.5, you got 3 days in the egg, 6 days as a larva, 12 days as a pupa. And on day 5.5, at least that's what they think, the female mite will work her way into the cell and come down to the bottom of the cell inside the roll jelly, use a little breathing tube to stay there. And once the capping is put on the cell and the pre-pupa is there, she'll crawl out, bite the pre-pupa, make it penetrate a hole to suck fat bodies and hemolymph. And then 60 hours later, she'll lay her first egg, which is always a male. And then every 30 hours after that, she'll lay another egg. Those develop, hatch into the proto-nymph and butyl-nymph. And finally, it takes about 7 to 8 days for the female to mature, and about 5 to 6 days for the male to mature. The male mates with his sisters, and then they all get impregnated. Some of these don't make it out. Finally, the adult bee emerges, and usually average of 1 to 1.5, not including the original mite, will come out if the bee survives. All the rest of them die. And so the mites are then transferred via close contact, and the cycle repeats itself to produce the mites. Right, these what they look like on a pea pupa. That's a lot of mites. That hive is probably not going to make it, more likely. And here's one on a little pupa. They're a very large mite compared to other mites, like the tracheal mite, for example, is way tiny, way much smaller than this. This is a very large parasite compared to the size of the body. Go ahead.
You said that in the pupa stage, how many mites are going to, on average, develop with one pupa in that time, in that 21, 24 days?
Usually 2 to 3, it depends on if it's a worker, 2 to 3, or a drone, just even more, because they have an extra 3 days they're in there.
Yeah.
And then one thing I didn't mention was that the reason the mites like drones, people say it was because they have a longer cycle. It's not true, actually. It's because they know the hormones. The mites are blind; they can't see, so they go by odor mostly and chemicals. And so they actually know the drones produce different type of hormones than the workers do. They have learned over ages that's the case, and so they'll go for the drones more. And there's something we'll talk about in a minute about treatment on that. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought there was a lot more than that.
There's not as many, there's several in there, but they don't all survive because they have to mature, okay, to a certain point. They have to actually mature, there's several in there,
Excuse me.
but they don't all make it out, some of them, they don't make it, they die, you know, inside there. Like the male mite doesn't, he just dies, you know, he doesn't come out, he stays in the whole time. Okay. So mites are also on the bees, and I like this phoretic mite, they call it phoretic mite, and I'm just gonna clarify something here for you that a lot of people don't know, maybe you do. But the phoracy is actually used to describe a non-permanent, commensalistic interaction with which organism attaches itself to another solely for the purpose of travel or transport. Commensalistic meaning they don't harm each other. So in the true term of phoracy, it's not a phoretic mite, okay? It's actually a parasitic mite.
Right.
But they just call it that because they do a lot of damage, such as attaching themselves to the bee on the underside typically. They can go on top too. These are called sternites, little plates. Between each of those sternites is a soft tissue. They would penetrate inside there and literally bite and attach themselves to the bee, and then begin actually putting in digestive enzymes into that bee and digesting what's called the fat bodies. For years, they always said, well, they suck hemolymph, which is their blood. Well, they do some maybe, but they actually go for the fat bodies more than anything else, including in the pupa also. This is where the fat body is like the liver that we have. It's an organ that stores nutrition, all kinds of things. It's an immune organ, everything else. And so, I actually proved this, and Sammy Ramsey, who's an entomologist, works at USDA, also known as Dr. Bucks, did some amazing research. I got some pictures here. This is a scanning electron microscopy image and photograph of a mite basically attached inside the scleroid right there. And this is amazing here. Anybody seen this before? This is actually where a mite was attached between the two scleroids to the soft tissue. That is where the mouth part is sucking into the tissue. You can see the imprint of the whole body of the mite right there, and then the legs. And these are actually the feet that pull it off. And the mite was actually sucking the hemolymph and or fat bodies in this case. And unfortunately, with time, if you don't deal with these mites, this is what you end up with, parasitic mite syndrome. And this is something this is kind of like, obviously, like the Lyme disease in humans. It shows a whole lot of different clinical signs or changes inside the comb. It looks kind of like, well, is that chalk brood, or is that like a European foul brood, or is it American foul brood? What exactly are we dealing with here? Well, it's parasitic mite syndrome. So a lot of different clinical signs, a lot of different changes can occur. You think that we tested for European foul brood negative, American foul brood negative, and then you get this, and there's usually with EFB, you're going to still see eggs because the queen's still trying to lay eggs. In this case, you probably won't see any eggs because the area is unfit for them to actually produce or to lay eggs in, and over time it's going to decimate. And what happens is they will sense the mites depending on the type of bees you have. Is Varroa sensitive hygienic, or any other type of bee, or not really the antibiotic per se, but the VSH type bees will sense the mite, uncap the cell, and end up with these little spots. You can kind of see some of the larvae have died. Is that European foul brood? No, it's not actually, but sometimes they will actually chew their heads off the pupa. You see that, chew their heads off the pupa. And that, they call this actually Buddy brood, I think. Snotty brood, different names for it. But that's what you see. And of course, this is, here's the things you look for. This is what happens. Symptoms of parasitic mite syndrome. Body brood pattern. Varroa mites are present in adult bees everywhere. Mites can often be seen crawling across still brood. Mites can also be found in open brood cells, usually chew down larvae and chew their heads off of the bees. The lack of adult population is time dependent, because over time you don't deal with this. Your adult bees keep dwindling and dwindling and dwindling and dwindling, and this colony continues to going down. There was nothing left of it, basically, and oftentimes, unfortunately, what's left oftentimes will leave that colony because they just astound and become a mite bomb. Go somewhere else and give other bees mites. So that's a problem. Large colonies are aggravated by high Varroa mite levels, often showing increased aggressiveness, lack of eggs, developing larvae due to unfit conditions for raising brood. Super citrus cells are often present because, queen's not laying eggs. They say, blame it on the queen, so they try to replace her. Calling bees is a high interest with the foreign wing virus, and that's a biggie there. No odor present until the larvae begins some decaying, but the foreign wing virus is probably the one thing that you can see besides this horrible brood pattern you have on your frames. And this is what, see with it, foreign wing virus. If you see a lot of bees in your hive with the foreign wing virus, that hive is probably not going to make it. Probably not going to make it. If you see a couple here and there, you might treat it in time. If you wait too late, summertime, especially in the summer, we may be in trouble with that hive.
Actually, at Kelly's field day this year,
Yes, sir.
they had a hive in there that was from a beekeeper there, and actually Chris Rankford was going to the hive, and they found
I heard you. Yeah.
they found 2 or 3 with the formed wing in it.
Yeah. I had my bees tested, and we took samples of 8 hives, they took them to USDA, and, I didn't have the foreign wing virus, I was really surprised, but, we did have, a couple of viruses. One was the Israeli acute paralysis virus, and the other one was Varroa destructor virus, which can actually hybridize, change itself. So these are the viruses here that can actually be vectored and are transmitted by Varroa. Just like you were to get bit by a tick, get Lyme disease or Ehrlichia, something like that, or yourself or dog, whatever. These little mites transmit viruses to the bees, and it causes a lot of demise and death from quick.
When you sent your hives off to have them checked, did you have a big mite problem?
I did not. We tested for mites, I had a very low mite count.
You didn't send your whole hive though.
No.
You sent a bee or two.
What she'll do is she'll come in, and if you choose to do that, volunteer. We actually collected, we go in, we shake these off, make sure we don't get the queen off, so we shake the bees off. And then we scoop up, some bees for live testing, because they keep the bees alive, and then other ones we put in alcohol. And then she takes also the wax too, which I was surprised that had very little, parasiticides or insecticides in there. I was really surprised, very, very low levels. The only thing I had in there was Tylenol, which I used to treat my mites, so. But those are 2 viruses. Oh, and there's one more thing, we're talking about Nosema serrana. That's a whole new lecture, but that's one thing also was in there. No, that's a new thing. I'm not sure. Nosema apis obviously has kind of been taken over by Nosema serrana, which is a fungal disease of bees, microsporidial. And but that's there. I think pretty much all the hives have that now. Nosema serrana. But that's a whole new lecture. That's something I'll talk about later in the afternoon.
One more question.
Yes.
Are we losing this battle?
I don't think so. The reason we're not losing this battle is because we are splitting our hives, making new bees. I think without us doing that, we probably would be. Nosema serrana, there's not really an answer for it yet. But there's some things you can do. There's still a lot of research going on about that too. And I think that it by itself oftentimes necessarily won't kill the bees or wipe the colony out. I think there's some combination of that organism there and something else. A combination of several different factors are making this kill the hive eventually. You don't see the clinical signs. Nobody, I never could have seen this serrana. Okay, it's there, but what is it doing to my bees? And I have other issues that we have been this past year. Several beekeepers across the state did actually this year. There were several outbreaks across the state, and I'll talk about that this afternoon. But anyway, these are the viruses here. Now, the chronic Mite virus is not transmitted by, neither is, the Sacagoo virus. Some more viruses. Those are all the ones that are transmitted there. Okay. So, as far as, what to do about treatment of them, now we're gonna talk about oxalic acid because of the time of year. But you need to do something, in the summertime, in the springtime, monitoring you should actually check your hive. They recommend 4 times a year. And does everybody know about how to test for mites? Okay, well, just in case, we're gonna talk about that in a second. This is a good website. If you don't know about this website here, this is one you can get on. It has a lot of information about mites, the treatment of mites. And then they have a tool now that just came out. I think Tammy actually and Dr. Karen was involved with this one here, the Varroa management decision tool. That you can go on there. It has the different chemicals and treatments and essential oils and acids you can use and what time to do them or what time of year and the state of the hive itself at the time. Of course, testing, I've used usually just, I use the Easy Check sometimes, and that's pretty easy, obviously, to have a couple of beads and alcohol, you're shaking really, really hard, and then you can just see how many are in there with the counts. And then, of course, I use just a cheap way to do it, just take a hardware cloth and a quart jar, make the screen, cut it out, fit it into the lid, and then just, what I do is take a regular lid. Once I pour my bees in there with alcohol, they die instantaneously. You put your regular lid on there, and then shake the devil out of it. Just really, really beat it up, just really, really hard several times. Let it sit a while, do it again, and then put this lid on, and I just pour it into another container. That way you can kind of swirl it around a little bit. You might even do it twice even, because sometimes I think you miss some mites. You can put another container, count the mites, and do, based on 300 bees, which is a half a cup. Sugar shake method, I've used that too. We've actually done side-by-side comparisons with our Kentucky beekeepers. I've done that a couple of times, and I actually have had larger numbers of mites in the sugar shake test than I did the alcohol wars. But by far, everybody says this one's better, but sometimes I get more mites in the sugar. I don't know why. It's kind of bizarre, but I've had that happen before a couple of times.
What about the CO2 test?
I'm not sure what that is. What is it?
Take a CO2 cartridge.
Okay.
And put your bees in a container
Right.
and then squirt it in there.
Right.
It's not supposed to kill the bees,
Okay.
Depending on how much you put in.
Right.
But you gotta get enough in there for it to kill the mites.
To the mites, yeah. Have you used that before, Dorothy? The sugar, the CO2? I know it's supposed to use for the queen bees to sedate, right? Yeah.
That's interesting, is
Yeah.
that Andy over there out there?
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to you
Yeah.
about that.
That'd be good. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm not really wanting to kill my bees per se, but, it's like half a cup of bees versus a huge hive, it's like, it's not a lot of money. That's not any bees at all. That's probably 1/3 of the number of bees that actually emerge that day. That's not very many, compared to that whole hive, so. Treatment thresholds, obviously, those have changed. Some people say if you less than 1, you should treat, less than 1, you should treat. But that's kind of a recommendation right now by the, maybe Health Coalition. Right now, we're kind of in the dormant with maybe some brood, maybe some without at this point, the cold weather coming on, but certainly you don't be testing this time of year, too late, really, it might be needed that, but, we had, 2 hives at the extension office, we had actually less than 1%, one of them didn't have any mites, and one had just 1 mite, and that was pretty low. We didn't do anything to do it. I probably will do oxalic acid, just to be safe, probably in November, or closer to Thanksgiving.